In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to apply an Oracle Patchset to a Linux build. For this video, at the time that I produced the video, the Oracle January 2022 release is what we're using, and I'm really going to talk a little bit of, between a foundation installation of BYOO, bring your own Oracle, versus a Veritas provided Oracle binary set. So this video should work with those conditionals for either a foundation or a more enabled NetBackup IT analytics solution. A school of practical experience from me would be to suggest, before applying a patch set, to go ahead and create a temporary backup of your Oracle binary directory. And if you have an existing backup mechanism occurring, like NetBackup, and you're backing up this area of your portal, you can just confirm that you have a valid backup and proceed at this point. If you don't and you have disk space, then I would recommend at this point a really simple mechanism to just go ahead, cd into opt-aptar, and then issue a tar command to create in verbose form a file with zip. We're going to call, you can call this tar file whatever you'd like, but we'll just call it Oracle temp.tar.gz, and the target of this as root. Notice that I'm logged in as a sudo or super user here. In this case, I've su'd to root function. Then I'm going to go ahead and just do it for the whole directory. So the tar file will recursively walk through and grab the permissions and, of course, the contents, the files themselves, at this point in time before we initiate changes in the environment. The main reason for this is if the application of the Oracle patch set has a problem, it will attempt to roll back. But I have certainly encountered circumstances where if the patch set encounters an issue in the process of deleting old binaries and trying to place new ones into this location, that the rollback may be only partially successful, and it can leave your database in a very, very unpleasant circumstance. So if that were to happen, by having this tar file available to us, we can restore from the tar file, get those binaries back in place, figure out what it was that caused the patch set to have difficulty, and try to reapply it. But like any change in any IT environment, always good to make sure you've got a recovery point available before making changes. This server that we're working on is the Oracle provided 10.3 binary for Oracle SE2. There may be libraries under or directories under /Oracle, /op/aptar/Oracle that would differ from the Veritas provided binary set. The important point at this stage is we do have a binary with permissions recoverable point that if subsequent steps have issues, that we could get back gracefully without having a corrupted database. Most of what follows now is going to be ripped from the pages of the latest install and upgrade guide for Linux. Notice that in the opening slides as well. So following our instructions at this point, I've already staged into our temp directory. I've staged the two binaries for the January patch release. The P6880880 is actually the OPatch carrier. That's Oracle's standard naming or numbering convention for the OPatch releases. And then the P33515361 correlates to the January 2022 Oracle patch set. Oracle releases those quarterly. If you're doing a later patch set, that number will differ, but the process of what we're going through will be consistent. You'll typically upgrade, which is what we're about to do. We're going to go ahead and upgrade our OPatch directory, and then we'll apply the specific OPatch, the latest patch set. All right, so let's follow our instructions. We're going to go ahead and CP or just simply move. We can move from our /temp directory, our OPatch file, which we know to be begins with the P688. We're going to copy that moving it to /opt/aptar/oracle. And we're going to add a path variable for this OPatch directory. Then our mechanism for moving old to new is we're going to cd into that working directory. If I could type, I would be dangerous. Okay. So we're going to move our current, the default OPatch directory. We're going to just move that to rename the directory to OPatch old. Case matters. Okay, after cleaning up my typos, we're going to move OPatch directory, the legacy one, to OPatch old. And now we're going to unzip the zip file that we just moved in, P688, etc. And you'll see that that's inflating a new OPatch content. Doesn't take very long. We're going to go ahead and set permissions on this just to make sure that everything's good. -R, recursively go through and set owner to Aptar, group to DBA, and we're going to do that for the path that we just laid down anew. So opt Aptar Oracle OPatch. When we're done with that, we should be in a position to confirm that our OPatch version has been upgraded. At the time of this video, the latest OPatch release was 12.201.28. If you're doing this at a later point, because OPatch typically gets upgraded with the patch sets, then that number will be incremented upwards. That completes our application of the OPatch. Now, if you're working against a bring your own Oracle, i.e. you downloaded the 19.3 installation binary from Oracle and accepted Oracle's license agreement to do that, then you will be able to immediately step into a utility that is described in the documentation. If you are looking at this video and you've done your installation from a Veritas provided initial Oracle build, that initial build may be missing a couple of jar files. So to check those within the documentation, the quick check for that would be to simply go into We're going to go into a specific directory in the Oracle hierarchy. And here it is. And what we're going to look for in here are two jar files. In the case of a bring your own Oracle installation, these will likely exist. One of those is xdb.jar. You can see that that does exist, and the other one of interest for the Patchset application that it depends upon is called XML parserv. So in this case, because this was a BYOO, bring your own Oracle installation, which was our start point, then those two jar files already existed. If this was an Veritas provided initial binary install, in the instruction set you'll want to go in and follow steps 5 through 11 to go ahead and, in essence, manually put those jar files in place and set some other permissions. In our case, bring your own process allowed us to just not do that. Since we've confirmed that we have a installation where the jar files are in place, and we've upgraded our OPatch already, there's a convenient utility within the Aptar NetBackup IT Analytics provided binaries that will allow us to very quickly go through the first phase of applying the basic patch. So to confirm, I'm going to cd into our temp directory, and again confirm that we have our patch file in there. I'm going to su into the Aptar user, go back into that same temp directory. We're going to create a little single line text file here. We'll just call this ORA patch list. You can actually call this file whatever you'd like. I'm just keeping it close to the syntax that our little utility command would match for the parameters that we pass in. And instead of course create, I needed to say vi. And in this file, we're simply going to put in the name of our patch. Okay, before I go in and create a file that will just hold one line argument, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this little line into my buffer, and then we're going to go ahead and vi a file name. I'm going to choose to call it ORAPatchList.txt. You can call it whatever you'd like, and I'm going to go into insert mode here, paste that file name, and that's it. That's the contents. Save the file, and at this stage now we're able to go in and issue the command referenced in our utilities that will apply that patch. And in fact, this file wrapper could apply multiple patches. These patch sets are cumulative, so it only needs one argument. I'm going to leave this in the video. I will have fast forwarded through some of the process, but I seem to be pretty commonly forgetting to do something before applying the actual OPatch, and that is that Oracle, as well as of course the Aptar services, all need to be stopped. So let's go ahead and show you how to gracefully, quickly get through that. We can go into opt aptar bin, you can execute this command and just say aptar stop. That will halt the user interface. It will stop the data receiver, and just as significantly and importantly, it'll stop the Oracle processes for both the listener and the database. Okay. Now we can go back in as Aptar. We can just recall up arrow R to call back our command. Let's try that again. Super. I used a little bit of video compression there to make that go a little faster than it does in real time, but successful completion of the initial OPatch. You'll see that it patched through components after extraction, and what we intend and hope to see is that message of OPatch succeeded. So if you're looking along in the documentation, what you'll see is that that script that we ran really accomplished the first 14 steps of the patch installation. So at this stage we're going to really kind of pick up at step 15 in the instructions to verify our OPatch success. So I'm going to be copying and pasting straight from the install and upgrade guide. So I won't spend a bunch of time verbalizing these commands. You'll be able to see them on the screen. So that took a couple of moments, but it came back and told us that there had actually been, from the initial release, we had started at, as you might recall, at a 19.3 version, and that up in the list of information and patching that has occurred here, we brought this database in this circumstance up to a 19.14 release. Lots and lots of files listed again. OPatch succeeded. Nice message. So what we can do at this stage is proceed through our instructions. We're going to go ahead and start up SQL Plus in NoLog. We're going to connect as sysdba. And recall that we had turned off all of our Aptar services, including Oracle, which is why we've just connected to an idle instance. Expected message. So we're going to go ahead and start up the environment. Numbers that we see, particularly for like the total system global area, will potentially be different for you by default, and in fact the minimum installation size for Oracle would be 12 gigabytes, which is what we see represented here. If you or Veritas have altered those numbers for your SGA space, they could be bigger. Database mounted, database opened, kind of conclusion of that process. So what that did is started up the containerized database, and what we're now going to do is make sure that all elements of the pluggable databases, and there's really just one with the default installation, but Oracle 19c can certainly support multiple pluggable databases under a single containerized database. So we're going to just be verbose, go ahead and say alter the command. We're going to bring the pluggable database open, and we're going to quit. So at this stage we have one more significant piece to remember to do, and that is to actually run a routine called data patch. So my hopefully close analogy of what's occurring is the OPatch process is replacing binaries. Now the data patch process is going to go through and sweep through, in this case, our pluggable database containing the IT analytics database schema, and make any changes that needed to occur as a result of all of these Patchset fixes. We can see that it's writing a log file for us. We can see, as mentioned before, in this video we're bringing ourselves up to the 19.14 release. If you're running an earlier or a later Patchset, those numbers will differ. Super. The patching tools run. We do see one mildly interesting message here that the automatic recompilation was incomplete. They're suggesting that we run this utlrp command. So there were no objects with errors, no errors during recompilation. Script ran cleanly. So we're now to step 18 in our guide. So we'll quit out of SQL. And our guidance suggests to check log files in opt aptar cfg tool logs SQL patch, and then there would be a SQL patch directory with a date stamp on it. See that we want to cd into our only SQL patch with a date stamp on it at this moment. If I run other patch sets on different dates, I'd see those still here. Patch_. Fingers are not finding home very well today. cd SQL patch. We can take a look at the SQL patch invocation log per the guidance from the documentation. Nothing jumped out at me in that. I suppose I could be more elegant and do a VI search for keywords, etc. There's actually other functions that we can take advantage of within Oracle that'll give us a more succinct summary. Anyway, we're up to step 19 in our instructions, which is to start all services as root user. So the key there is to, we can't do that as aptar, to go into root, opt aptar bin /aptar start. And since Oracle's already running, the wrapper script to start aptar tells us that. Then it proceeds to start the Oracle listener and bring up the rest of the IT Analytics application stack. Last but not least, we can go ahead and follow the instructions to do a quick validation on how the registry looks in the Oracle registry. Make sure that everything came through as expected. So we need to go back in as aptar, connect up as sysdba. We're going to do a few select commands that are written under step 2. You can see the patch applied brought us from our original 19.3 release to 19.14, which is good. Looks great. Kind of a nice succinct message there. There's our patch ID, status is success. At this stage we're really done with the patch upgrade, the Patchset application. If your aptar services have already come back up, it's not a bad idea to go and confirm that all is well by, for example, confirming that you can get into the portal. So in this environment, this lab environment, I log in with the credentials as shown, and I'm confirming that I'm able to access the portal. We're getting expected behavior. The other thing that we can do, just as one more visual confirmation before we call ourselves completed here, is we can go still as our aptar user. If we simply do an SQL plus and connect up as our portal user. In this environment I haven't changed the passwords from default. We see the version of SQL Plus has actually been upgraded, so that's another nice affirmation, confirmation, visually easy to accomplish, that we're all upgraded into a 19.14 release of the Oracle instance. If you had made a backup after your burn-in window is completed, good hygiene, you can go back through if you wish, and you can go ahead and delete the tar file that we've created because it's moderately large. We can see it listed here. Comfortable having done a couple of these in my days, I'm going to go ahead and delete that file. That concludes our upgrade of Oracle.